Welcome to Revolutionary Gazette. I'm Will. Well, we've traveled today outside Winchester, Virginia for the first of two episodes outside the Old Chapel, one of the oldest Episcopal churches west of the Blue Ridge Mountains, and we're hosted today by Travis Shaw, a local historian. Travis, I know that when we talk about the American Revolution, it's not a monolith. We're not all for one or for another. We're not all from the same country of heritage, and we're going to explore that over two episodes with you. Who do you want to introduce me to today?
So I'm very glad you mentioned that. You know, in a lot of ways, the Revolutionary War is the first American Civil War. We're going to see brother against brother, family against family, and there's a really perfect example of that right here with Captain Thomas Taylor Byrd.
Okay, so Captain Byrd, who does he serve with?
So Captain Byrd is going to actually serve with the British Army during the war. Byrd is a Virginian. He's the son of William Byrd III of Westover, big plantation on the James River, one of the wealthiest families in Virginia. He's going to grow up in a very, very privileged childhood. He receives early schooling in England. He's going to receive a commission in the British Army before the Revolution as an officer in the 16th Regiment of Foot. Briefly going to be a student at William and Mary before he's expelled. So very much like the top of colonial society.
Well, let me stop you there for a second. You're chuckling and I hear a little bit of a fun story there. Talk to me about college years.
So I don't know much about what actually happens. We do know that both Thomas Byrd and his younger brother Francis are both expelled from William and Mary after only a few months. Supposedly something to do with property destruction and abusing some of the staff and faculty there. So
he leaves college, he gets a commission in the 16th of Foot.
Yep.
Before the war begins.
Before the war, yep.
Where do we go now?
So in 1774, he's actually in New York City as kind of the first rumblings of the coming revolution are stirring. And he's actually going to write to General Gage, the British commander in Boston, wanting to go to Boston to help him kind of do what he can to quell this growing rebellion that that's on its way. After the war starts, the fighting actually begins, he's going to specifically say to Gage, look, I am a Virginian. I have family connections in Virginia. I know the landscape. I know the territory. He wants to be sent to Virginia specifically to aid Lord Dunmore, the royal governor, and to aid Dunmore in his attempts to reassert control over the colony.
Well, talk to me. For those of us who are now Americans, 200 plus years, that seems in some ways a little unfathomable. Talk to me about why a man like this would make a decision like that.
One of the fascinating things about loyalism, and when we study loyalists, is every loyalist has their own kind of reasons for wanting to remain loyal. For some people, they're just politically conservative. They see the revolution as bringing anarchy, bringing, destruction. It's against the rule of law. For many, it's family and business ties. For some, it's religious or ethnic ties. With Byrd, he never explicitly says too much about it. But what we can kind of read from his letters is that it's really a sense of duty. He's someone who's grown up really experiencing all the benefits of being a subject of the empire. He's an officer who's taken an oath to serve, and so he is going to take that oath seriously. Unlike his younger brother Francis, he was a commissioned officer in the Royal Navy. He will resign his commission and actually become a staff officer for General Charles Lee in the Continental Army. So we've literally got a case of brother fighting against brother in the Byrd family.
Brother versus brother.
Brother versus brother.
Talk to me quickly about his brother.
Okay, so Francis Otway Byrd is the youngest brother of Thomas Taylor Byrd. As I said, they'd grown up together, schooled together, got kicked out of William and Mary together. He's commissioned in the Royal Navy, but he will resign that commission at the start of the Revolutionary War, and he will find a place as an aide-de-camp with General Charles Lee. And what makes this particularly interesting is that in 1776, it's Charles Lee who's commanding Continental troops in Virginia fighting against Lord Dunmore's troops. So at Gwynn's Island in the summer of 1776, these two brothers are literally involved in the same battle. One on the British side. Thomas Taylor Byrd will be serving as the commander of an organization known as the Royal Ethiopian Regiment, a regiment made up of liberated slaves, freed slaves, who have taken up arms for the British. But on the other side, literally across the river, in the artillery that's bombarding his position, is his brother Francis Byrd, who's there serving with Charles Lee.
Wow. Well, talk to me about the Ethiopian Regiment and talk to me about Thomas Byrd's place in the regiment.
Sure. So the Royal Ethiopian Regiment has its beginnings in November of 1775 with what's known as Dunmore's Proclamation. Lord Dunmore, the governor of Virginia, is doing everything he can to reassert control over the colony. And in November, that kind of comes to a head with what's probably one of the most drastic actions that the British government will take at this point in the war. And that is, he is going to offer freedom to any indentured servant or enslaved person who's willing to take up arms against the their patriot masters. And so he's going to start forming these African American men into a regiment he calls the Royal Ethiopian Regiment. Ethiopian, people always ask why that. Kind of a general 18th century term for any African at that point. And these men are going to be armed. They're going to take part in a few small battles around Southeast Virginia, the Battle of Great Bridge in December of 1775, the Battle of Gwynn's Island in the summer of 76. The regiment is not as successful as Dunmore hopes. Hundreds and hundreds of enslaved men, women, and children will flee to his fleet, take advantage of this offer. But almost as fast as they're arriving, these people are dying of typhoid fever, they're dying of smallpox. One of the reasons the Army's at Gwynn's Island in the summer of 76 is they're trying to set up hospitals there. They're trying to inoculate these people against smallpox. Thomas Taylor Byrd himself, he's going to serve as major in this regiment. He's going to be commanding the Ethiopians at Gwynn's Island. But by the time they evacuate the island in July of 1776, he's so ill. He actually is one of the last to be evacuated, and he's carried off in a wagon. He can't even walk under his own power.
Wow.
Very nearly dies.
Wow, so evacuated from Gwynn's Island, sounds like this segment of the British history doesn't go so well for the British.
Right, yeah, by August of 1776, the British forces that are in the Chesapeake Bay, Lord Dunmore and his British and Loyalist forces are forced out of the bay. They will go to New York City. The Ethiopian Regiment is disbanded there. Some of the other men who've joined him kind of find their way into other Loyalist units.
And where does Thomas Byrd go?
So the record on Byrd gets a little sketchy once they arrive in New York. We know at one point he's serving as an aide to Edmund Fanning, who's a famous Loyalist leader who's recruiting troops in New York. And then there's some evidence that he probably serves with the 60th Regiment, the Royal American Regiment, kind of in the Gulf Coast area. We do know that after the war, he's one of the few Loyalists who goes to Britain. For many of these families, they've been in America for generations, including the Byrds. They've been around for many generations. So England isn't home to them. But he will go there because he does have family connections and connections from his school days. He'll remain there until 1786. He returns to America and marries into the Armistead family, a very prominent family in the Virginia Tidewater. And he comes out to the Shenandoah Valley because his mother's family, his mother was a carter, they had owned a lot of land out here, so he'll take control of some property out here and he'll live out the rest of his days in the Shenandoah Valley. Kind of remarkable as a Loyalist and as a prominent Loyalist, he's really welcomed back into society in a way that I think a lot of people probably weren't. Probably has a lot to do with his family connections, okay. What his name is.
Is it also a little bit because of the way he carries himself afterwards, living out quietly?
Yeah, he does live a fairly quiet life out here. During the War of 1812, some of his sons will actually serve in prominent roles in the War of 1812. One of his sons is killed leading American troops at the Battle of North Point outside of Baltimore. So again, there's kind of, while he served with the British Army, his sons are patriotic Americans who will put their lives on the line for the American cause during the War of 1812, and I think that probably has a bit to do with it as well.
Fantastic. Well, Travis, thank you so much for introducing us to Thomas Taylor Byrd. I know we're going to be back with you soon. Thank you for joining us at Revolutionary Gazette. Come back for a later episode. We continue to explore the different challenges and decisions made by people in America during the Revolutionary War, and Travis is going to give us a sneak peek at someone who makes another decision but is buried here in the cemetery outside of the old stone church near Winchester. Join us then. We'll see you soon.